Good morning. This is Breakfast with Brian, and I'm sitting here with my grandfather.
Theo.
And I'm Marcella. The book that we listened to today on philosophersnotes.com was called The Power of Decision by Raymond Charles Barker. And the book's main focus was about believing your greatest thoughts are possible, and that you can make the decision and take action and make your vision of your best life a reality. Barker begins the book by emphasizing the power of recognizing the divine within you. And we thought that was really powerful and wanted to share it with you. So keep it in mind while we go through the rest of our big ideas.
You had an experience recently when you rode your bicycle from San Diego to Oregon to Colorado where you shifted some negative feelings, right?
Yeah. Well, overall, the whole thing was really positive and helped me believe that, kind of recognize the divinity within and that I can do whatever is possible, and kind of like just manifesting an example of that. I refer to it in my daily life. But one of the biggest things is that when I first started, every day, something would go wrong. Like I would get lost, or I would be in the middle of a desert at noon and just like harping on what a bad situation that is. Or I wouldn't fill up a water bottle, or just like, or I want to go camping at a certain spot and they didn't allow tents, they only allowed campers. Like there were just a lot of different organizational
things. Did you find yourself judging yourself for these problems?
And so what made it a lot easier is that, I practiced if I messed up, that I would forgive myself. And actually say it to myself, like, Marcella, you started this, you're doing this alone, and if you don't forgive yourself, who's going to? And so I think that really just helped get me to the end, and that I wouldn't have finished if I didn't practice that.
So you actually shifted your moods by forgiving yourself whenever you'd start judging yourself?
Yeah, because I realized that it's not really that big of a deal if I don't make it a big deal. So it really helped.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, I think that fits right into our theme today about how to shift your moods. So there's a marvelous piece of work that we've both come into contact recently that comes out of the Course in Miracles, and a friend of ours, Diedrich Wolsak, and Dawn Green, who have a center in Vancouver, Canada, and here in Costa Rica called the Choose Again Center. And they have this process, this stepwise process, how you can shift your moods. And so do you want to tell us each step that works for you?
Yeah. So the first step, and we can use the little things that happened to me on my bike trip as an example, but if something went wrong and I felt anger or, mistrust or judgment or something, the first step would be to recognize that feeling. And then do you want to say a little bit about each one?
Yeah, so recognizing when sometimes people are not in touch with their feelings, so to just acknowledge yourself, I'm not feeling so good right now, and get in touch.
And that's okay, yeah. And then the second one is look inside and kind of search to where the base of that emotion lies, or what caused that. Not only from like your present moment, but what in the past has made you feel that way.
Right. So in other words, you're looking at some belief about yourself, or as we said earlier in your example, about how you're judging yourself that's making you feel bad.
Right. And that's very important to kind of the other day we were practicing this, and one of the important points that we brought up was recognize the feeling, make it as big as you can, and go back to the very first time that you felt that way in your life. And then that's where the healing is going to start. So after you do that.
So when you go back to that point, you developed some belief about yourself that was a judgment.
Yeah.
And so you're actually undoing that untrue belief. And that's where this idea about realizing the divine within you, that you aren't actually that shortcoming being that you judge yourself to be, but you actually are a part of the divine.
Yeah, yes. And so, and that's, forgiveness, like that really comes into play right there. And the next step is, what does that say about me, which we just kind of went over. And then the next step would be to ask for forgiveness.
Well, I just want to reiterate that that judgment of yourself is like why you feel bad is what you've said to yourself about yourself. And when you get in agreement, that's where you go down. And so what you want to do is you want to discontinue that false belief about yourself. And so that's the final step, right? Is you go into...
In order to facilitate that discontinuation of the negative feeling and shift it into a positive feeling, we need to forgive ourselves. And then there's a practice that you'll explain to help us forgive ourselves.
Right. In other words, you see what you were believing that's not true about yourself, and you forgive yourself for having that false belief, and then you'll actually feel the release, like, oh, I am okay. Yeah. And you get back in touch with your divine center.
Can you tell them what we did during the circle? And when you're looking into somebody else's eyes, like that.
Well, like for example, in this circle process where you use it, you actually look at somebody and say, for me, I remember saying, please excuse me for thinking that I was dumb, or thinking that I was incompetent. And then the other person says, I forgive you for thinking that. And you actually can experience it. Sometimes it does help to have somebody else to share it with and for them to say it back.
And I think one thing that really was important was that you're putting it out into the open and you're verbalizing it and not just internalizing it. Yeah. And that's what helps with the process. So we just encourage you to practice those steps at home if this is something that you're struggling with, and we'll go on to the next point.
Yeah, it's a good thing this is recorded. If you didn't get all the steps, you may want to go back and play each step over and then stop the tape and try that step and the next step, You may experience it.
Cool. And so next, I think Theo wants to share how he's shifted his negative thoughts about himself into a positive way.
Right. This actually came from another philosopher's note where Brian said, stop the tape and write down some of the things you judge yourself for. And then, so what I did was, and then see how you could reinterpret those characteristics as positive. So I just took a paper and had the left side, the things that I judged, and then the right side where I looked at them as a positive quality. For example, obsessing. And the positive way to see it is that I get into deep contemplation about things and I access deep wisdom about them and I can stick to it until I get through it. Another one was when I have a goal and I really want something and then I get frustrated, sometimes I'll get angry and I judge myself, I get angry too much. And then I go, well, sometimes that's good for setting boundaries, and it energizes the transformation that I'm working on and in myself and in my relationships. And there's another one that we chuckle about is that there's a characteristic of people who get cancer is they're always like worry about everybody else and not taking care of themselves. And I don't think I'm going to get cancer because I express myself. Another one was that sometimes I don't complete things, and a good thing about this is it lets me focus on the best thing at the moment, and it stops dead ends. And recently, I think on a philosopher's note, Brian was talking about when you get so joyfully involved in projects that you want, for every mile you go, you want to have 2 miles added onto the end of your journey. And that's kind of what my life is about. I get so interested in projects, and it's like the richness. I'm looking around and going, wow, I have great projects, and there's more and more. It's not like I'm running out. Another one is sometimes I just feel like I just don't want to do anything, and I just lay around. So laziness is the label that I put on myself. But then I realized that it balances rest with work, and the whole idea from another book by Tony Schwartz and The Powerful Engagement, Tony Schwartz and Jim Loehr, about when you need to go into recovery cycles. And so it's good to take a rest when you're tired. And then finally, seeing myself as selfish. And then I realized that a reinterpretation can be that is when I focus on something that I really focus, and it helps me complete that task. And paradoxically, one of the things that I love to do most is to contribute to people in the world. And so if I'm really focused on something, then that by being so focused, it helps contribute.
Nice. So we've seen, I mean, these are the things that we work on to be our own best friend. And we hope that by sharing what we do for ourselves, that you can integrate it into your own life and really be there for yourself so that you can put the best part of you out into the world. So thanks for joining us today, and we'll see you at Breakfast with Brian tomorrow.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.